Hello everyone, and welcome to chapter 2 of the Youth for Energy series as part of the webinar series prior to the Latin American Student Energy Summit 2021, an event and a space designed to bring together young leaders in the energy sector from Latin America and the Caribbean to discuss and share issues, solutions, and opportunities to design a sustainable energy future. My name is Nadia. I'm a co-founder of the Student Energy at University of Guadalajara chapter from the actual city that LASES will take place. So I'm very honored to have our guest here from the Caribbean, and just to have some background on what the webinar will be about. In the previous one that we have, chapter 1, we had the privilege of talking with young Latin American leaders who are promoting initiatives on their own communities to redesign the energy future. And this time we will extend this conversation, but this time with our young leaders from the Caribbean, which is a region, one of the most vulnerable to the ravages of the climate change. So a little bit of the background of the Caribbean. This energy security is a top priority for the Caribbean and has been for a long time. And one of the reasons is given that the average cost of electricity is 4 times higher than in rich countries like the United States. So these higher costs are not only a daily difficulty for the population, but also it's one of the main obstacles for unlocking economic growth and prosperity in the region. So although the recent drop in oil prices there in the Caribbean has partially relieved this situation, it also represents an opportunity to consider strategies to increase the energy security in the region, talking about investing in clean energy and increasing efficiency. So in order to contribute to this transformation, we have our leaders here from the Caribbean that will join efforts for design a sustainable energy future during the Latin American Student Energy Summit, which will take place in Guadalajara in 2021. So without further ado, may I introduce to our 4 guests from 4 different countries from the Caribbean. First of all, we have Jamaica with Rochelle Pinnock. She works in Sustainable Development Goal 7, the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth. I'm very happy you're with us. Then we have from IT, we have Naomi Auguste. She is from One Young World. Very happy to be here and that you are joining us. Then we have Grenada. He's Raheem Smith. He is the Caribbean Climate Network. And then we have Trinidad and Tobago. Last but not least, Yannick Yearwood. He's a colleague from Student Energy at UYI. And well, we are going to start our conversation with a pretty simple question. And this is for you to introduce yourself. There's no one better to introduce yourself than yourselves. So I want you please to talk about in which organization you collaborate and how do you perform, what do you do there? And please tell us a little bit about your organization and what activities you carry out in your work. So we're going to start please with Rochelle. Please, Rochelle, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nadia, and greetings to everyone who have joined us for today's webinar. I'm very excited to be a part of this cohort of young people who are trying to make a change in energy. So I am a student at the University of Technology, Jamaica, studying computing, and I'm a part of this phenomenal network of women called the Caribbean Girls Hack. And what it does, it empowers young women with the skills needed to participate in digital transformation. So we teach young women how to code, how to create tech solutions that will change their community for the better and for the world. Another important thing about Caribbean Girls Hack is that we normally have a yearly hackathon, and the hackathon has two themes. So gender-based violence and climate change. So every year, thousands or hundreds of girls come together across the Caribbean. So we have in Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and some other islands. Every year, hundreds of girls come together and they tackle one of those themes. So I'm very happy to be a part of today's conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. We're very happy that you're here. It's impressive what you do and your mission. So thank you for coming. Then we have, please, Naomi August. Welcome, Naomi.
Thank you, Nadia. Welcome to everyone who's watching this right now. As Rochelle, I'm so excited to be here and to share my work, what I'm doing, and why I'm with you. I am Naomi August. As you said, I'm from Haiti. I am a recent university graduate with background in electromechanical engineering. And I currently work as junior electromechanical engineering on an electrification project in my country, where I supervise the work on the city. I volunteer in many youth organizations. I do like that, which work in community services and young empowerment. My works with them allowed me to become a young world ambassador. I am also volunteer at the Classic Startup by Chapter, which is a global community designed to educate, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs in Lake Caribe. My work is interesting. What I'm saying that it allows me to get in touch with a lot of organizations and institutions, such as the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, the CEMTBTC, and a Barcelona's firm named TTA, like through third-party contract. They collaborate for a specific project in the northeast of Haiti, named Rural Electrification and Women Empowerment. They are realizing the electrification of some especially free communes in Haiti. We all know what the UNDP is doing, right? But the energy itself is doing an amazing job in my country in the energy sector.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you very much, Naomi, for being here with us to share your experience and your story. So next we have Raheem Smith from the Caribbean Climate Network. Welcome, Raheem.
Hi, good night. Are you hearing me? Okay, great. Good night, everyone. My name is Raheem Smith. I am a youth climate activist and environmentalist. I am from the island of Grenada. I am a recent graduate of the T. Marisha Community College, where I was under the English program. As Nadia said, I am from the Caribbean Climate Network, which was established in April 2020 from the Imagine Caribbean program. Now, this program was launched by 350. That's an international organization that is dedicated to fighting against fossil fuels and working with climate activists from around the world. From this program, different Caribbean nationals from Trinidad, Grenada, Puerto Rico, Guyana, British Virgin Islands, and network. We are a network of climate activists, environmentalists, organizations, and experts working on climate issues in our respective countries. Since our inception this year, we have done a few capacity building trainings and sharing of best practices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raheem. It's amazing what young people is doing, and all of us are how we're trying to redesign our future. So last but not least, we have Janik Yearwood from Student Energy at UYI. Welcome, Janik.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. So I'm a professional engineer. My discipline is electrical and instrumentation. I have been doing that for the past 8 years or so. I have worked in the upstream oil and gas sector primarily doing asset management and development of electrical and control systems for offshore platforms in Trinidad, working with the national oil company, Petrotrin, well, the former national oil company of Trinidad and Tobago, Petrotrin. Recently, as of 2019, I completed my master's degree in renewable energy technology. That is when I became affiliated with Student Energy, had the opportunity to travel to London to be part of the Student Energy Conference that year. It was a wonderful opportunity. I'm looking forward to the next one. Since then, I've transitioned on. I'm continuing to be a professional in the oil and gas sector, but I'm doing design work with a local consultant, engineering consultant firm, where we do a lot more design work to support our clients and making sure that they have the right solution to meet the needs of their plants, whether it be brownfield or greenfield initiatives. We want to make sure that everything that they do and all the products that we advise them on as efficient as possible and as well as safe and reliable for everyone who is involved.
Thank you very much, Janik. I think it's super important to have all these views. He is a petrochemical engineer and he has a master in renewable energy. So that's very
electrical engineer, but I work in the petrochemical sector.
Sorry, electrical engineer, and he works in the petrochemical sector. So that's super interesting. We're going to we're really looking forward to listen to your anecdotes, to your stories, and to your experience. So we are going to continue with our questions. We have specific questions for our panelists. The first one is a question from Rahim. And it says that according to your experience, what do you think about the relation between the climate crisis and the energy transition? How do you think they are linked? How do you think it is important? And why do you think that?
Okay, thank you very much, Nadia, for the question. So the climate crisis and energy are much related with one another. And this issue began over 200 years ago when the Industrial Revolution started to bloom and the Annex I countries started using coal a lot to fuel the economy. Now, this was very successful, but for the environment, this was very bad because of the negative impacts of the coal. Now, 200 years later, the climate crisis has turned from a crisis to a war. Diplomats and negotiators argue with one another at COPs on decisions whether to transition to renewables and leave coal or stay with coal, or make it less of a priority. Like many Caribbean countries, Grenada has felt the impacts of climate change. Our coral reefs have bleached a lot as a result of the rising sea levels in the north of the island. The sea has taken over the Sates Bay, thus negatively impacting the livelihoods of the people there. And recently, our Met Office has reported a record high temperature of 34 degrees Celsius since 2005. If we want to fix the problem, we must transition to renewable energy, which is now the trending energy topic. Transitioning to renewables will help our countries to be energy dependent and have energy efficiency. If we continue to use fossil fuels, then the temperatures will increase until it will be difficult to decrease. Thank you.
Yes, I think that link is very dangerous, but we can actually change it. So hopefully in the next few years, governments and us as engineers and as young people will contribute to change that. So thank you very much, Rahim, for your insight. Then we have a question for Rochelle. This is very interesting because of her background in education, her educational background. So it says, what is your current perspective on how young people are using technology to respond to climate change and the energy integration in the Caribbean?
Thank you for the question, Nadia. I think what's very important to recognize off the bat is that the environment is very important to us as Caribbean people because our lives and our livelihoods depend heavily on our environment. We depend on our environment for agriculture, so food security to feed ourselves, right? So that's very important to us. Also, a lot of our economy is dependent on tourism. So we definitely depend on our environment and we need to protect it, right? So to technology now, I think if there is one important lesson that COVID-19 has taught us all is the importance of, virtual connections, right? So when we can't meet face to face, work must go on, education must go on, and it has definitely forced us to embrace technology and this digital transformation and to play a big part in that. What is very important is that as young people, we need to understand that we're not only consumers of technology, but we can definitely be creators of said technology. And that is what Caribbean Girls Hack is all about empowering young people to not only be consumers, meaning you have a social media account, you go on it, you scroll, but you can actually be actively creating content and benefiting your community and so forth. So I think technology is definitely a wonderful tool that can help us in this energy transition. And I'm going to tell you how. Now, as a part of this team that entered the hackathon, and we essentially created an app that uses gamification and AI to help users limit their carbon footprint. So it would monitor your carbon footprint, and you would have a robot there talking to you, similar to Siri and Alexa. We call her Carbon until we get another name. But yet Carbon would be telling you, this is what you can do to limit your carbon footprint. If it is that you don't need to drive somewhere, it will definitely tell you, you can walk here, you can take your bike and so forth. It's very integrated into your life and your lifestyle. Now, it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're male or female, you can actively be a part of creating things that are going to be benefiting your community. And that is what we want young people to realize. And so definitely there have been thousands of other solutions specific to the energy transition. So in terms of using blockchain technology to deal with surplus energy on the grid, and distributing that energy that is available on the grid, right? So as we move towards a more renewable, more environmentally friendly energy source, we're definitely going to be having accompanying technology to help to accelerate that. And young people are definitely poised to be at the forefront of such movements.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. I really liked what you said about we're not just consumers, we are creators. And I think that's very true. We have in our hands the future of technology and of the world. So I think it's super important how young people are using the knowledge, the resources we have to actually improve our lives. And I think it's amazing what you are doing with the hackathon. I think it's opening a lot of possibilities and opportunities for a lot of people, not only girls. So thank you so much for that amazing work you're doing. And well, we are going to continue with the next question. We have it for Naomi. I want to ask you, Naomi, that this sector, the energy sector, and a lot of sectors are very man-based. So this is a question about what have been your biggest challenges that you have faced as a woman in the energy sector to execute your actions and to achieve your objectives? Can you share?
Thank you, Nadia. I think we, women, today we are evolved by in soft fields, which once upon a time was dominated by men. And it took a long time to understand that women can do what men used to do in the past. And this is actually what happened right now. And since then, challenges become our daily life. For me, I can say that my biggest challenge was about managing people. You know, people, when you are a woman, it's difficult for men to that a woman will give them orders.
Naomi, I don't know if it's me, but I think it doesn't sound very well. I cannot understand very well.
The most important to manage people. And as we are going to manage relationships, like your friend, keep professional relationships, it's challenging.
More or less, I hear, but I cannot understand a lot because it's very cracky, the sound. Okay, let's hope the internet, your internet, I think, could stabilize so we can come back in a little bit so we can hear you better. Do you agree? Okay. So we're going to come back with Naomi to solve the technical problems. And we're going to go for a question to Yannick. This one is for you, Yannick. And it says, what is your opinion on the importance of young people participating in the energy transition? Because you said it, you got involved in distant energy and then you went to CES 2019. So in your experience, what do you think is the importance of young people participating in this transition? I think you're mute.
Yes, well, to simply put it, it's extremely important. It's vital that the youths of today take the action to make this transition take place, because we, or the youths of now, are the decision makers, are the people who have the power and the ability to make those decisions that will lead us into that future. You can look back into the past and you can discuss all the different aspects that led us to this point in time, but the past is the past and it has been gone. And I guess you could also look to the future. It's very important to plan for the future, but it's hard to predict what comes 20, 30 years down the road. For instance, I'm sure there are many people who are planning to make a lot of different changes, probably travel a lot in 2020, and in all their contingencies, they never expected COVID to come along. But in this moment, and that is just a short time frame I'm looking at, that's a 1 year span from last year to this year. So imagine 30, 40 years down the road, you can't really see what that's going to be like for real. But what you can do is take action about what it is now. The youths are going to be around 20 and 30s. They're going to become professionals and they're going to be in a diverse range of fields to participate. It could be in politics, it could be in technology, engineering, community activities, community advocation, and all these can push towards where we think the value should be placed in this generation. We think that transitioning into a more diverse energy system where there are a lot more renewables and there's a lot more checks and balances in how we manage our energy resources and protect our environment and still maintain a certain high quality of energy reliability, we as the youths have to be able to take that in our hands and not pass it off onto somebody else, because there is nobody else to make that choices for us. Only we can do that at this point in time.
Yes, I think you're very right. And I really liked that you said you don't have, well, at this point, worrying about what will happen in 20 years, we don't know. So it's really cool what your insight is about doing and treating the issues you are seeing now, trying to solve those problems. And in the long run, maybe those problems will, hopefully, they will be smaller problems. And yes, I think the decision making that young people is having right now is really important to look forward to a better future, right? So thank you so much, Janik. Then we are going to ask a question for two panelists. This is a specific for Rahim and Rochelle, and it says, what efforts are required to get young people more involved and taken into account in the decision making, actually talking about decision making, because we know that as young people, we are not very into the decision making as we would like to be, right? So it's a challenge to be part of decision making. So in your opinion, what are these efforts that we have to make to take into account? Please, Rahim.
Okay, thank you very much, Nadia. So, in my point of view, I think before we look at decision making, I think the first thing we should look at is capacity building, because that would lay the foundation to help our young people understand the whole concept of energy and sustainable energy and green energy. So I think we need to help them have a paradigm shift and shift the thought from energy as in coal, oil and gas, to green energy, to renewable solar, geothermal and wind. I think that it is important to help them engage in sustainability, help them to understand the concept of sustainability, because when people think of energy, particularly adults, I know those big oil executives, the ExxonMobil and others, when they think of energy, all they think about is profit and the economy and getting monies. But when our young people should think of energy, they should think of not only profit, but also the preservation and conservation of the planet, and also the protection of people's lives, because there was a report that I read about. Every year, thousands of people die from air pollution, and that is very significant. So when we think of energy, we should think of the people, planet, and profit. And then another pathway to get into the decision making, I think we should help our young people to engage in the actual involvement in the renewables. I think we should get our young people more involved in engineering, electrical engineering, particularly helping them to understand the ins and outs of the solar panel, EVs, the wind energy, how they operate, because I know, because we are Caribbean countries, I know that our resources are limited, so we may not have the knowledge to do these things. So helping them to get that particular training is very important. And a next set of training is policy training. Policy training is very important. Policy training is where leads to that decision making. Once we get our young people involved in policy training, helping to understand the vernacular of policy and the ins and outs of policy, that also would be the lead up to decision making. And then another important effort is advocacy. As you can see, use the international organizations like Youngo, they have their members, go to the COPs to, advocate, to the decision makers and negotiators who are the COPs, to make the right decisions every year from COP 1 to COP 25, which was last year. So advocating and having, side energy lobby events to help people understand and make the decision makers know that we understand the ins and outs of energy, and also make them understand that we want a sustainable future is very important. And then the final step is getting them engaged in the process itself. So this year the Secretary General, he established a youth advisory group on climate change. So I think if our different ministers of energies in the Caribbean region could take a page from his book and also establish youth advisory groups on energy to help the youth give concerns and solutions. That is very important to be, help them get involved in the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahim. Yeah, I think it's very true what you're saying. And it's very cool what you said about how different generations perceive energy in different ways. So I think that's very interesting. And that also it has a big impact on the decision making that we as young people want to change and how older generations see it, right? So thank you so much, Rahim. And then the same question for Rochelle. What efforts are required to get young people more involved and taken into account in decision making, Rochelle?
Thanks again, Nadia. So I think the first thing to recognize is that this movement that we're a part of is very unique in that, what's really happening with our environment and changes that we're seeing. And also, this movement will make a lot of people uncomfortable because of the fact that a lot of, capital has been invested into fossil fuel-based energy. And a lot of businesses would need to be transitioned to be more renewable, right, in their approach. So I think the first thing I'd advise young people, if you want to get involved in decision-making processes, which you definitely should be a part of because you make up the society, that means your voice needs to be heard and amplified. I think that the first thing would be to trust your intuition. Number one, trust your intuition. If this is something that you are passionate about, that you care about, you get up every morning, you are the persons who are experiencing the challenges because you're the person who have to live with it. So you're the one who is seeing your receding shoreline, you're the one who is seeing the coral reefs being destroyed, you're the one seeing the plastic pollution, you're the one seeing the animals dying because of the fact that they're ingesting too much plastic, you're the one seeing the toxic waste. You are affected, your community members are affected, your family is affected, and your friends are affected. So trust your intuition. If this is something that you really want to fight for, then get involved and be very clear about why you're getting involved in the first place, because this is going to be a long journey. This is going to be a fulfilling journey, but it's going to be a journey that will challenge you. And I think you need to, first of all, trust your intuition. And I think the second thing would be very aware of your options at every step of the journey. If you're not aware of your options, things will lead you side by side, right? But when you're aware of your options, you're able to make more informed decisions about what it is that you want to do. So I would say the renewable energy transition seems a bit high level, right? It seems for very skilled people, but I'm here to say that not necessarily the case. You don't necessarily have to have, and I know that Yannick have a master's now in renewable energy, and we all want to get there at some day. But even if you're not at his stage, you have no background whatsoever. First of all, you have to understand it's a movement, and the movement needs, as Rahim said, advocates, activists, communicators to express the frustration of people in a very coherent way and to rally people together, right? And we also need our engineers. But you have to understand that this movement needs people of different skills. So don't count yourself out because you don't have a scientific background and think that the renewable energy transition, there's no space for you in it, because there is. I just like to say, I've seen on LinkedIn, many young people coming together to form podcasts around energy. And I'm like, wow, what better way to get change than sparking the conversation and speaking about those hard things, right? Those hard topics, and getting people aware that, hey, we're over here, we have voices, we have opinions, we have perspectives, and we have solutions. More importantly, we have solutions. So I definitely think, one, trust your intuition. You're the one facing the challenges. Be aware of your options at every step of the journey, what you can do to get involved. And definitely, 3, don't count yourself out. There's always a space for you in the transition. Yeah.
That's very inspiring, Rochelle. Thank you so much. I think a lot of young people would like to listen to what you just said, because it's true. You don't need to have a scientific background or a really PhD to be part of the transition. You know, it's a matter of all of us. I have friends who are doctors who are interested in the energy transition. So I think it's super important that we all, as generation that will redesign our future, come together for a specific objective. So thank you so much for your words. It got me very inspired. And okay, so now we're going to jump into another question that it's also pretty interesting and important, because we have really important people here from NGOs that are global, that have doing a lot of great things in the energy transition and in climate change. So this one is for Naomi and Janik. It says, what have been the most significant experiences that have motivated you to persist and continue with your work? I want to listen to Janik first. Your most significant experiences, Janik.
Oh yes, well, come from Trinidad and Tobago. Energy is basically part of the lingo. We have a country where we have natural resources in terms of natural gas and oil. It makes up about 40% of our GDP. So basically, anybody who's anybody, and about every 5 conversations that you might have, somebody's going to start talking about, all right, the oil price is good today, things looking good for the economy, everybody's hunky-dory and happy, everything's going cool. And you grow up from young thinking about that, and that leads a lot of people to want to go into the energy sector. And then I guess early on in my life, somebody initiated the concept that, hey, this thing can't last forever. It's like, okay, so what are we going to do then? If the resource is not a renewable resource, then it has a significant impact upon us. And that will trickle down in terms of everybody who is anybody who is a citizen in Trinidad and Tobago has to feel the brunt of that burden. Now, I might have been a little bit naive at that young age, because I thought the simple solution might have been, okay, well, we just buy some solar panels, buy some wind turbines, we install it, and it's all good to go. Yeah, problem solved. But my next experience would have probably come as I started in university as an undergraduate and started to understand the dynamics of an energy system. That it isn't as simple as, okay, flipping a light switch night to day and you move into some. So when I thought about it early in university, gaining that experience, I understood that Trinidad and Tobago, yes, we do not have an issue with energy as a resource. We have a lot of that, and it's a reliable resource, and it sustains us for a very long time. But there are other aspects of using fossil fuels that we have to be concerned about. As some of the other panelists have mentioned, there's climate change as an issue. When you have an economy that is driven by fossil fuels, you have to be concerned about the impact it has on the environment. And being from a small island nation, when you don't have that much land mass to protect you from the changing elements that are surround you, there's going to be concerns about other aspects of the island. Depleted fishing resources, rising water levels, increased hurricanes in your neighborhood. And you still have to keep in the back of your mind, this fossil fuel can't last forever. It might be 100 years until you have to deal with the issue, but at that point, you need to be building an infrastructure to maintain a certain level of energy security, which leads us back to discussion about sustainable development. You can't go and start now while you have the advantage that you have something that works for you and build a backup in terms of energy storage and renewables and protect your environment at the same point in time, so that when it's time that the critical crunch time comes, it isn't that hard a burden on us to make that switch. So that is my experience that leads me into this.
Thank you so much, Janik. Yeah, I think lives go on, right? So we have to have backup on our lifestyle because we are so used to this lifestyle that we have to keep it on. So I think it's very important what you said, and we have to consider a lot of things, but it's not impossible. So thank you so much, Janik. We are going to ask Naomi the same question. Naomi, what have been the most significant experiences that have motivated you to persist and continue with the work you're doing?
Thank you, Nadia. I do hope my internet is okay right now. In 2017, I was in my last years at university. I attended the Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum, which allows actors in the sector to have crucial and fruitful discussions over the energy problematics. This also helps to promote clean energy investment in the region, and it was just a year after the Hurricane Matthew, which devastated the Caribbean, and different delegates from different countries from the Caribbean have explained the challenges they faced, especially in the energy sector after the Hurricane Matthew in 2016, and what they did to remediate, to keep providing and even improving their systems. I finally realized that we certainly have so many problems that we could analyze at any time, and surely solutions are always somewhere. And this is where my work, my commitment start. It's one of the reasons that I decided to bring my contribution in this sector. And on the other hand, this also explains why I'm so passionate about the work I'm doing right now. I have the satisfaction so that the work I'm doing right now will allow people to benefit the access to electrical energy. So I'm contributing to the well-being. And when I go to sit and I met people and I can, when they try to express all they appreciate they will be able to do with electricity in their commune, it's just touching. Thank you.
Thank, thank you so much, Naomi. Yeah, I think that the impact that you have on the people that you're working with is one of the most satisfying things when you see people that are taking advantage of what you're doing, of your work in a good way. I think that's very fulfilling, and I think that's super nice that your work is impacting in such a beautiful way. So thank you, Naomi. We have one last question to close the panel, and this is for everyone. This is more motivational to inspire people that are watching, young people. So it says, how would you motivate other young people to participate in the regional energy transition, wherever they live, right? Regardless of their area of knowledge and work. It was what Rochelle was actually mentioning. And what opportunities, what kind of opportunities your organization facilitates when it comes to climate to help for the transition and all this kind of matter. Okay, we're going to start with the girls. Rochelle, can you share?
Sure. I would like to say that, our climate change impacts us all. So it's one of those problems that regardless of race, creed, kind, geographical location, educational level, social background, climate change affects us all. So really and truly, it's a unique problem in that specific area. And I think therefore, young people need to get involved in that. No, I want to demystify what the involvement of young people should be. No, a lot of organizations or groups or so forth, that are not led, that are youth led, seem to have a very tokenistic approach to in the involvement in youth. So we have youth and they're the face of the movement, but really and truly, they have no say in the decision-making process and so forth. I want to say to youth that don't let that deter you, because as I said before, this is a problem that affects us all. I think the most important thing is to not be afraid to carve out a space for yourself in any kind of movement whatsoever. Listen, like the renewable energy transition, climate change has so many levels to it and so many topics. You can look at gender and the role of, gender equality in climate change. And if you're passionate about that, go ahead and focus on that. You could also look at the educational aspect of climate change and renewable energy, which is including it in the curriculums. If that is something that you want to tackle, definitely do that, right? But don't be afraid to carve out a space for yourself. If you like speaking and you think that your role in this transition is going to be communication, then don't be afraid to have those lives on Instagram or to start your podcast. If you think that your thing is going to be the techie side of things, don't be afraid to start up a little club or a little association where you guys meet. No, virtually, but later, hopefully soon, we'll be able to meet and go like we used to, and think about the problems that we're of carving out a space for yourself. It allows you to be very specialized. If you want to get your voice heard, you'd have to definitely be saying things that people are interested in hearing about and that are really insightful. When you're specialized, you get insights into your specific topic, as opposed to just learning about things generally. You're able to look at the problem from a very nuanced perspective. Why? Because you've been working out this problem for a very long time. You're very invested in it. And I think those are just some of the benefits of being very, specialized, very niched, very specific as your in regards to your focus. So I would say, young people, there's nothing that you shouldn't be involved in, because it affects us all. And don't let your age, when you enter a room, speak up and let your voice resonate throughout the room. Once you're passionate about something, don't feel as though you have no right to be in this space, because you're in this space to begin with. So I definitely say be brave, be bold, and definitely don't be afraid to carve out a space for yourself.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. We're going to jump with Rahim. Please, Rahim, how would you motivate other young people to participate?
Right. So first of all, I use a lot of social media as a social media fanatic, because social media plays an important role in educating young people, particularly Facebook and Instagram, where you have a larger audience. And in educating them via social media, I want them to understand and help them to know that in the renewable energy transition, it's not only about, renewable energy experts, but, even though you're not, a part of the movement, you would have a particular role. Take, for example, people who work in the education system. They will have a responsibility for educating our upcoming future generation, to think sustainably, as I mentioned before. They would have the responsibility to help them understand the concepts and the realities of climate change, and what the now fossil fuel energies are doing to our climate system. Youth who are involved in politics, in the political system, they would have the responsibility, to, help, um, motivate and help to change the minds of the senior politicians. They would have the responsibility to go on there on the political platform and be the voices for their country. People in science, they would have the responsibility, to do the research and help to find the creative solutions, and innovations for the problem. So everybody has their parts to play in the energy transition, particularly social media. In terms of how my organization can help to facilitate that, the Caribbean Climate Network, we can help to train young people and provide capacity building opportunities, for example, climate lobbying, video ad management, and, and networking, which is also important as well to, meet with other people like how we are now from different Caribbean countries and then find out what they are doing in their country to fight the climate crisis and what they are doing in their country to help with that renewable energy transition.
Thank you so much, Rahim, for your insights and for your opportunities. We're going to pass to Naomi. Please, Naomi, how would you motivate young people to participate in this energy transition? And what opportunities does your organization facilitate?
First of all, I think young ones need to be aware of how their actions, their choices, and lifestyles can impact our environment. They also need to know how the energy transition could be profitable for them, the environment. Is to reduce energy related to CO2 emissions to limit climate change. So further action is needed to reduce carbon emissions and mitigate the effects of climate change. Anyone can contribute regardless of their area of knowledge and work by taking simple actions, by encouraging our neighbor, classmates, colleagues, friends to do the same too. For example, we all are consumers, right? We use energy for different aspects in our daily life. So we can start by managing the energy we use and choose which type of energy we're using because energy is the light of the future. So we should be more conscious about this and more responsible through our choices and actions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Yeah, I think that's very important. Changing the way we consume is kind of one of the most important things to change the panorama, right? So thank you so much, Naomi. We're going to jump into our last panelist, Janik. Please tell us, how would you motivate young people to be part of the transition?
The most important thing is that you have to keep the conversation alive. If you truly value that this transition into a new era is important, then you just have to keep discussing it with those who are in and around your lives and make it a norm, a part and norm of your daily habits. And through that, a persistent approach to that, it will transition into action because more and more people can become aware of what they can be capable of. You don't need to be a Superman. You don't need to build 10,000 solar farms and 10,000 wind farms. A simple thing like switching off a light in a room that you're not using, making sure that when you spot a leak in your house, in a faucet in your house, that you address that. Being responsible with your plastic waste, making sure that is disposed of ethically, then you have made a significant impact in the long term. And having that conversation and having that atmosphere around and everybody is buying into it, it will help transition us forward. I liked what Rahim had said earlier about the education aspect of it as well, because you can't just talk among just your peers as well, but you have to pass it on to the younger generation who's coming. The power of habit is a very powerful thing. And habits are easily formed when you are at a much younger age. So if at the, say, early age of 10, 11, 12, the idea of being engaging in sustainable activities becomes a norm to your day-to-day life. When you move into the transition into a decision-making age, your early 20s, 30s, then it's not going to be foreign to you, and you would quickly embrace as a community the actions that are necessary to protect your environment in a practical approach, because not everybody's going to be an engineer, not everybody is going to be a policymaker, Not everybody's going to be in governance, not everybody's going to be in communication. But collectively, all those skills can come together to create a significant product that we can all trust in and that we can all advocate for. It's all about working together to get a better, brighter future of tomorrow.
I very much agree with you that giving information, educating young children, it works. It worked for me because my dad used to do that, and that's why I kind of chose this sustainable path. So it works. So please tell your children to take care of the environment. It will work.
So I think Student Energy does a good job
last
of
but
that
not
as
least,
well. I was
sorry?
saying, I think Student Energy does a good job of keeping the conversation alive. Clearly, we're having this conversation at this point in time, and it must be reaching somebody,
Yeah.
and they can pass it on to somebody else, and so forth and so forth, and somebody will take action.
Yes, we have a lot of people who are part of the community of Student Energy that have been doing amazing things. You guys are part of this network, and we're very proud to have you. So we're going to jump into the last few questions that we have from the public, the ones that are watching in Facebook Live. So this says, it's very regional. You know, for example, well, in Latin America, it's kind of generalized. There's not a lot of education in these aspects. So, but it changes, you know? So what is the most difficult challenge in the Caribbean to empower people? Who, this is open, whoever wants to answer this question.
I think one of the bigger barriers is the fact that it is quite regionalized. Every country kind of has its own little niche about how it needs to address it for its the island's specific needs. So when you start to collaborate with people of different island nations, you quickly realize that their highest priority may not match with yours, and there becomes, I guess, a challenge for resources as how to address it. If there's a greater master plan for the community, it will allow more focus to be taken place. And that focus can be placed in the hands of, say, the youths who would be the decision makers and the drivers of that, to understand that it's more of a global thing, a regional thing, versus just an isolated island activity that needs to take place. And through that connection, you know, we can develop focus strategic initiatives to achieve those goals.
Thank you so much, Janik.
If I may,
Yes.
I just want to agree with what Yannick has said. Definitely, I think in terms of identifying the problem, a lot of island nations identify their and prioritize their problems very differently. So what an island A want to focus on right now may not be what island B wants to focus on. And there are myriad of reasons for that, economic reasons, partnership reasons, and so forth. But I think that education, going back to the point that Raheem mentioned, is very important, and STEM education specifically. So science, technology, engineering, mathematics, right? I think that is very important for unlocking talent completely, because what STEM education empowers you with is the ability to actually, you know, create things, right? Tangible things. And I think that including more of the renewable energy, environmental aspect of, you know, the world into our curriculums is very important for getting more young people involved and more skilled and talented people involved. And I think that it's about, you know, what the prioritization is for the specific island nations, but a good way of tackling the problems that we face in the Caribbean in terms of our acceptance or acceleration of energy transition is definitely informing and educating people, and then understanding that education and the way we are going about it is revolutionizing, it's changing. So in terms of chalk and talk and being physically there, that is changing very rapidly, I would say. So we're more about in the age of getting certificates. So on LinkedIn, you see every day, you know, there's a new school that's offering a certification course in some kind of topic. We're moving towards, you know, digital learning, e-learning, and I think that incorporating those changes into how we go about educating our population is also very important to tackling the challenges we face.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. I think it's very true what you're saying. So we have one and we close. So this one is, again, a little bit more motivational. What advice would you give to young women who are beginning to get involved in the energy sector, considering that there is still a considerable gender gap? I think maybe a girl from their experience could try to answer. If it's a boy, it's fine. Who wants to share?
I would like to add something. I think they need to keep moving forward. It could be it could be sometimes difficult since it's, how to say, it's a based man field, but I don't know. I don't want people to take it bad, but I think that women are managing people more good than men. It's because women have this capacity to understand others' feeling more than men. We are more sensible. So I think young girl needs to take this as advantages because the world needs them and they are powerful and they need to know how impactful they could be for the world.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Yeah, I think all of us as women, as men, as people, we have advantages that, as Naomi said, we have to take advantage of. And that's pretty true. So just to close, thank you so much to everyone, to our 4 panelists, to share your experience, your anecdotes, your insights. It was very interesting to talk to you because we, as young people, we share a vision that we want to redesign a sustainable future. And as Yannick and Rochelle said, we have a lot of areas to work on. It's just not energy, it's just not water, it's a lot to work on. So it was very inspiring to hear from your expertise, to know how to get involved, to know how not to get taken down, and to use your voice. It was very interesting what Rahim and Rochelle and Yannick and Naomi said, that sometimes with the generations, we change our perspectives of how we see energy, how we see the future. Because, for example, older generations saw the future differently from what is now. And so we have to think, imagine, and redesign joint efforts to actually make it happen and have an energy transition effectively and nicely. So thank you all for being here, for accepting the invitation. Hopefully we hear from you soon. And well, for whoever wants to get in touch with this amazing panelist, with your permission, we can share your LinkedIn or your social media so they can ask you questions and get in touch. So thank you for everyone who's watching, to everyone who came here. And well, we'll stay in touch. Thank you so much for being.
Thank you, Nadia.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. It's been a pleasure.